welcome to today's press briefing. I'm Donna Bush. I'm so glad that you could be with us on our channels as well as on Radio Cayman. We'd like to first welcome our panelists, starting with His Excellency the Governor, Mr. Martin Roper, Premier, the Honourable Alda McLaughlin, Deputy Governor, the Honourable Franz Manderson, the Honourable Tara Rivers, Minister of Financial Services and Home Affairs and Director General of the Cayman Islands Weather Services, Mr. John Tibbetts. Also joining us in studio are members of Hazard Management, their team, the sign language interpreter, and various journalists from across the Cayman Islands. We're going to go first to the Director General of the Weather Services, Mr. John Tibbetts.
Good afternoon. This is the information on Tropical Storm Delta for 4 p.m. this afternoon. The storm is located at 16.2 north, 79.4 west, with maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour. The motion is towards the west at 8 miles per hour. The storm location right now puts it at 245 miles to the southeast of Grand Cayman. The prediction continues to have a forecast that will continue to move it towards the northwest. Despite this forecast, the storm for the last 24 hours has been slowly drifting towards the west-southwest. This is called the forecast track to continue to move west of the Cayman area, and in the latest information, the tropical storm force winds is expected to barely brush the west coast of Grand Cayman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Tibbetts. We're going to go now to His Excellency, or the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. That is really good news from the Director General, and we decided to have this press conference to give everyone who's involved an opportunity to update the broader population and indeed to reassure the Cayman Islands that we are ready to deal with any eventuality. The Atlantic hurricane season this year has already proved to have been, shall I say, above normal. So many powerful storms have formed over the Atlantic since the season began that only for the second time the United States National Hurricane Center has used up all of the approved names for storms. And we're now using letters from the Greek alphabet to name any new storms, hence Tropical Storm Delta, which is the 25th named storm this season. As I said, thanks very much to Director General of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, Mr. John Tibbetts, for that latest update on Tropical Storm Delta. That is indeed good news. But notwithstanding that, I urge everyone to follow the advice provided and to get regular updates by tuning into official news sources such as Radio Cayman, gov.ky, and the government's social media pages. Public safety is our top priority, while the government and the public service is pulling out all the stops to ensure that we safely navigate the storm. Each member of this community needs to take personal responsibility for their own safety. Conditions in the sea and on land during storms can change suddenly and become quite hazardous. Therefore, please stay away from the beach and out of the water and avoid areas that are flooded. I urge you to stay home if you can and stay safe until the storm passes. These types of storms can be unpredictable, despite everything we do to try to predict them. Tropical Storm Delta has already thrown us a few curveballs, as Director John has just indicated. Thankfully, that one is a good curveball. Whilst this is expected to be a tropical storm and not a hurricane when it passes us, it is nonetheless a strong tropical storm. It is therefore very important, as I have said, that we continue to pay close attention to its development until it has safely passed these islands. Radio Cayman, as it has always done, will be providing invaluable updates throughout the night and through tomorrow. As part of his briefing today, the Deputy Governor will provide an update on the preparedness of the public service and will provide further information about shelters if that is necessary and if that would be a safer option for you. He will also, I'm sure, advise on government's plans for closing its various offices tomorrow. Despite some closures, there are many civil servants who will be working throughout the night and day tomorrow to ensure that the public is kept safe. I encourage all private sector employers to be understanding at this time as we face yet another challenge this year. Wherever possible, have your staff work from home and minimize travel on the roads. Once the storm has passed, there may be debris such as fallen trees or downed power lines. So I urge everyone to please stay off the roads until the all clear is given. 2020 has been a challenging year. I can't find a better verb, but adverb, to say the least. And we're weathering two storms at the moment, Tropical Storm Delta, and we're still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. But we are used to facing challenges. Caymanians and those who call this place home are resilient people and will come through once again. Despite these additional challenges, the Cayman Islands is prepared and ready, as usual, to weather Tropical Storm Delta. I ask everyone to stay safe until it has passed.
Thank you very much, Premier McLaughlin. We go to His Excellency.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I recognise that there is clearly concern and anxiety out there. We have a tropical storm approaching, and as the Premier has said, we've already had our fair share of issues and events this year. But I think the main message is, despite the slightly better news just now, we shouldn't let our guard down. It's always better to over-respond in any crisis and then pare back, rather than be caught out. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And government has acted quickly and decisively. And there's always an element of uncertainty. So that was the sensible and prudent thing to do. And as the Premier has said, there could be strong winds, rains, they can cause damage, trees, flying debris, possibly to power lines. And I spoke to the Police Commissioner and the Prison Director this morning about security aspects. They have very well prepared contingency plans in place, but the Police Commissioner did ask me just to reiterate, please not to go out on the roads later today and tomorrow morning. It will be hazardous, and no, it's better not to go to the shore to have a look, and please only put things on social media if you know that they are accurate. Of course, we have the 2 police helicopters, which are a huge asset in this situation, and they'll be going up tomorrow as soon as it is safe to do so. And I just want to underline that I've been in touch with London this morning, who are watching developments very closely. I spoke to the UK Met Office, the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defence. We do, of course, have the Royal Navy ships in the region, Argus and Medway, unlikely to be needed in this situation, but a really helpful reminder that they're there for this or future situations if we need them. So main message from me, please stay safe, Cayman Brac, Little Cayman and Grand Cayman.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. Deputy Governor, the Honourable Franz Manderson.
Thank you, Ms. Donna, and good afternoon. The National Hazard Management Council has had 3 meetings since yesterday. I received a call from Mr. Tibbetts, the call that I never want to receive, saying we have a storm coming our way and we need to prepare. But I'm very pleased to say that the council immediately got called together and we began our preparations to keep us all safe. So since yesterday, we have taken a number of decisions to keep us safe. And just to give a bit of updates as to where we are at the moment. So the Port Authority has closed to the public at 12 p.m. today, and they'll open at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. The airport has closed at 3 p.m. for at least 24 hours. The Cayman Airways flight that was scheduled to arrive tomorrow has been delayed until and rescheduled for October 7th. Shelter teams are on standby, and if a decision is made to activate shelters, we will start with the Red Cross. We've identified shelters in each district in case we do need them. We pray that we don't. Damage assessment teams are prepped and ready to activate to conduct preliminary damage assessments once the all clear is given. The NRA has been actively clearing wells and trimming trees in high risk areas. The NRA will also facilitate the clearing of fallen debris and trees after the all clear is given. The utility companies have activated their plans, and both the Water Authority and CUC have advised that they do not intend to cut their services, but that could change depending on the severity of the storm. The Public Works Department has carried out checks on all shelters, and we've actually shuttered a few shelters based on a request. As His Excellency says, both Her Majesty Prison Service and the police have activated their plans, and they are ready, and all prisoners at the prison are secure. The Cayman Islands Coast Guard has secured all its vessels. Schools are closed tomorrow, and also the government, all government offices are closed tomorrow, and we hope to open on Wednesday. I have some other information about how we're dealing with our persons who are in isolation facilities, but I'll just pause here and turn over to Minister Rivers.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Governor. Honorable Minister for Financial Services and Home Affairs.
Thank you, Donna, and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that arguably our national emergency operations are in the best position possible to respond to this severe weather event following our sustained efforts of tackling COVID-19 over the past several months. The track record of our first responder and emergency operation teams truly has been world-class, and we want to sincerely thank each and every one of them for their efforts and resilience shown thus far during this very unprecedented year indeed. In response to the Tropical Storm Delta and following the meeting of the National Hazard Management Council yesterday, as the Honourable Deputy Governor has mentioned, work has begun and is continuing underway to put in action the necessary national preparedness measures. Particular consideration has been given to maintain the integrity and security of the COVID-19 isolation conditions, including those at the government facilities and in private residences. Arrangements have been made to securely relocate individuals isolating at home who are at risk of flooding and to move them to appropriate government facilities. The monitoring of those in home isolation by the Department of Public Safety and Communication through the geofencing technology is robust, and it is capable of withstanding weather conditions far more intense than is expected to impact our shores in the coming hours and days. Warning flags have been raised in Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman, and regular public announcements have also begun, and they will continue to be broadcast widely with weather updates and preparedness information. So the public is advised to continue to monitor the official news sources, including gov.ky, weather.gov.ky, and caymanprepared.ky for the latest accurate information. Emergency contingency plans have been activated across our first response agencies to ensure that business as usual is maintained while the necessary preparedness measures are in place. Surge resourcing capacity is being deployed at the Cayman Islands Fire Service in both Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac to respond to any expected increase in incidents due to severe weather. The fire service crews will also join colleagues in the Coast Guard in a joint effort for all inshore search and rescue operations. The National Emergency Operations Center call center will be activated from 9 p.m. this evening, and individuals with non-emergency inquiries about the response to the tropical storm can call 949-6555. Again, that is for non-emergency inquiries, 949-6555. Any emergency calls should still be directed to 911 for fire, police, or EMS dispatch. A second shift of call takers is being deployed for 911 in case of an increase in emergency calls. A situational assessment is already underway with the low-lying areas being mapped and monitored for flooding. Comprehensive damage assessment will commence tomorrow once weather conditions allow for our first responders to move around safely. community emergency response teams have been deployed across the 3 islands to distribute vital preparedness information to residents and to conduct wellness checks on the most vulnerable people in our communities. All 15 shelters in Grand Cayman are ready for activation if required, and the shelter teams have been placed on standby. Similarly, the Ashton Ruddy Civic Center in Cayman Brac, and the Public Works Department building in Little Cayman are both on standby to be used as public shelters if needed. Anyone needing to shelter at a facility is asked to bring their own personal protective equipment, including face masks and sanitizers or hand sanitizers as a COVID-19 prevention measure. Finally, the National Emergency Response Team maintains in regular contact, or remains, I should say, in regular contact with SEDEMA, that being the Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency, of which Cayman is now an official member, to keep them informed of the situation on the ground here in the Cayman Islands, should their assistance be required to be coordinated. The Cayman Islands has been tested many times, as the Premier has said, but we have remained steadfast and resilient. We stand ready to respond to what lies ahead, and we have done this countless times. And again, it's thanks in no small part to the men and women of our response agencies and their tireless and selfless efforts. As the Deputy Governor said, many civil servants will be at home tomorrow and not able to work, but our first responders will be there in times of need, and we want to say a special thank you to each and every one of them. So may God continue to bless and protect these Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Minister Rivers. Before we go to members of the media, we're going to go back to the Director General so he can walk through some slides for us with his team member.
Okay. I'd like to first of all acknowledge Ms. Carrie Forbes, our brilliant young forecaster for the National Weather Service, who's assisting me this afternoon. Tropical Storm Delta has, as I said, been drifting west and southwest, and the forecast track continues to move towards the west. With the latest information, the tropical storm force winds are expected to brush the west coast of Grand Cayman for a few hours tomorrow. While the forecast path has moved to the west, the part that might alarm people is that the system has strengthened, and now it is fairly close to becoming a hurricane. That being said, hurricane force winds from the system are expected to remain west of the area, and the tropical storm force winds at around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning is expected to brush the west coast. It should be pointed out that even though we get the band of tropical storm force winds missing the Cayman Islands, the problem is going to come in the form of rainfall and flooding. All right, the Hurricane Center has been estimating that we're going to get about 2 to 4 inches of rainfall per 24 hours in terms of rainfall. But some of our models are indicating higher numbers are about 3 to 5 inches. And if we're looking at a satellite picture, the bands of the tropical storm are wrapping around even Jamaica and approaching the sister islands as we speak. And if we were to look at weather radar, you would see we've already received quite a bit of showers, but there are some more heavier sustained areas of showers still to come. And we're expecting that later on tonight, somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock for Grand Cayman, 7 or 8 for the sister islands. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. The good news side of this thing is that as this storm continues to track towards the west, the possibility, there's always going to be a possibility of a turn towards the northwest. And that's what the Hurricane Center has been forecasting. However, with each individual briefing, we notice the system is continuing to move towards the west, and so that forecast path will continue to drift west further and further away from the Cayman Islands. So it looks like the Cayman Islands will be spared of a significant impact from the storm.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tibbetts. Okay, now we're going to begin with members of the media, starting with Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman. Push it down. You can just push it down, the laptop. Yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon to each and every one of you. I believe my first question would go either towards Premier or His Excellency Governor. Now, this storm appears to have provided an opportunity to see how our systems are working. Are there any things we have learned so far? I know that maybe there have been many lessons learned. So what can you tell us from times past and now in terms of how our systems are working, how we approach this particular tropical storm this time around?
The system is so well oiled, they only tell me when they have problems. I haven't heard of any problems, but I think the DG may be a little closer to it.
Right.
If I may be a little clearer with it, in terms of how we were able to deploy so quickly, from the time that we made the decision, the warning, the dissemination, let's talk about that, the canceling of schools, civil service actions, even the shelters being on standby. Let's talk about how quickly we were able to deploy this. Do you find that it's lessons learned maybe from past hurricanes or even from COVID-19?
Yes.
What can you tell us about that one?
Like the Premier, I get a lot of the good news as well, but I do get when things are not going well. And I had a meeting with the Hazard Management Council Department just earlier from Ms. Dana Coleman, the director, and I asked her what are the gaps, and she said none. So that tells me that our systems are working. We have a dedicated team of public servants along with the private sector who come together with a common cause, and that is working together to keep us all safe. So definitely the lessons that we have learned over the last 6 months, having the NEOC been in operation activated for 100 days, has allowed us to build relationships, work together. But so that has actually helped us a lot right now in being able to deploy so quickly. But then having the team who is going to give us the right information when we need it. I don't look at the weather until Mr. Tibbetts calls me, and then we're able to activate so that, and I must say the team has responded very well. And I just want to give a big shout out to the members of the private sector who continue to be engaged with us on the NEOC. We always have Will from the chamber, everyone working together. And of course, as Minister Rivers says, our emergency services always stand up. When everyone else is standing down, they stand up and they do it very well.
The word that I've heard on the streets is impressive.
Yes.
It's been so impressive,
Yes.
so.
But Donna, just let me say this, is that within minutes of the Director General speaking to the Deputy Governor, he spoke to me and we talked about it. But because we've all been through this so many times, we understand a few things, right? You've got to be decisive, you've got to be clear, and you've got to communicate what you've done. And you've got to give the population as much advance notice as possible of decisions that affect them. For instance, the closure of schools. So, we had a quick chat about that. I got on my group chat with the Minister of Education and the rest of my team, and we said, we need to communicate that very swiftly. Mm-hmm. And because we've been down this road before, it's always better to err on the side of caution and to be decisive and clear in your communication about what you're doing. So if schools are closed one day more than they need to be, so be it. It's better than they being closed one day less than they ought to have been, because that creates chaos, right? So we've learned to I think Shanda's point, we've learned a lot of lessons over the course of the last years, and right now because of COVID, I think we're incredibly sharp.
That's awesome. Shanda?
Yes, Premier, you mentioned being on the err on the side of caution. I know a lot of people are concerned that we were probably overreacting So I just want to know, do you feel comfortable about the approach that we've taken so far in our preparations and even in this moment?
Shanna, that's what they told us about COVID-19 too. So, as I said, it's better to err on the side of caution. And so the worst thing that's happened is we've closed schools one day too early, some might say. But it is about keeping people safe, reducing stress and chaos, which are all really bad when you're in a crisis mode. So we've learned those lessons. And I think that, on Wednesday, on Wednesday, we're going to be pretty much back to normal with little or no difference and hopefully little or no damage and certainly no injuries or loss of life as a result of this event.
And just one last thing, Mr. Tibbetts, I know that even though the forecast is better, we are going to see some conditions. But I just wanted to kind of ask you to kind of paint the picture as to a little bit more into what we're to expect. Only because I know there are a lot of residents and there are people on island that have never been through a storm, never been through a disaster. They don't know what to expect, or even know when it's time to move if they should. So maybe can you just paint us a picture as to what the conditions will look like at this point in time, and if someone else can maybe mention what they can do if things progress to be a little bit more difficult for people to either stay at home.
Well, I think when you're asking about what you're expecting, I think if you look at today, for example, we had some sunshine peeking out at us at times today, but we had a few showers around. Okay, and while I'm not saying you're gonna have sunshine at night, you're gonna have some isolated showers just lingering around the place between now until it becomes a bit more organized and becomes a bit more steady. So as we get into the night, we're going to start to get bands of showers and thunder showers moving across the area that are going to give longer periods of sustained rainfall. Now, I think you need to realize that, the tropical storm force winds are all passing us to the west, but these are for the better use of word, the spiral bands or the rain bands associated with the system. And the spiral bands or rain bands can bring you conditions similar to what is in the center of the storm. So we do need to be careful of it. It can bring you very good, healthy tropical storm force level wind gusts in some of the heavy torrential downpours. So that is possible, okay? This kind of weather is expected to continue through most of tomorrow. As I said, when we looked at the briefing at 10 a.m. this morning, we had about 6 hours of tropical storm force winds we were looking at. Now what we're seeing is about 2 hours at which the tropical storm force winds are just going to brush the west coast of Grand Cayman. So things have improved, but we're not out of the woods yet.
If I could just add, I think this is a good opportunity to highlight and promote the fact that hazard management produces on an annual basis a very thorough guide to what to do during the hurricane season. And if you haven't picked up your copy, now is a great time to do so because we are still obviously within hurricane season and we need to be informed to be prepared, especially for those people, as you may have mentioned, that this is their first time experiencing any sort of tropical weather activity.
Okay, thank you very much, Shanda. Thank you to the panel for answering those questions. Wendy Ledger is not actually physically with us today, so I have one question that she's asked me to ask. The question is if we could explain, as it relates to persons who are in quarantine, particularly in home quarantine, all the government facilities, as we know, are on the coast. Is anything happening there as far as moving people? What's going on, Deputy Governor?
Thank you. So yesterday we began contacting all the persons in isolation, and so far we have received a request from one person who was isolating at home, and they asked to be moved to a government facility, which we have done that. We have also moved a number of persons who were on the ground floor of the government facilities, we've moved them to a second floor, and in some cases, we've moved them to another facility to ensure maximum safety. We had an individual who felt they were not prepared in terms of groceries, so a civil servant went out and did some grocery shopping for them. So everyone now, I think, is safe and is comfortable in either at home or in a government facility.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Governor. We're going to move now to Reshma from Cayman Compass.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Donna. My first question, just to build on the home isolations, what sort of contingency plans are in place should the weather take another turn? Because we can't trust these storms, right? What sort of contingency plans are in place for those who are isolating and those who will have to assist them in isolating, especially when it comes to the COVID protocols?
Right. So we only have persons, I think there are 3 persons who are COVID positive at the moment. So they are being looked after, and they all say that they are safe. They're all one group, and they're all safe and quite happy to be where they're located. We've, like I said, we are keeping in regular contact with all the persons who are in isolation. If they feel that they need to be moved somewhere or they need assistance, then we are standing by to do it. We have asked them to keep their devices charged so that we don't get a lot of beeps going off in the middle of the night that their bracelets are not connected. So we're doing our best to keep them informed, keep engaged with them, and then quickly respond to any request that they have. But I must say the team has done a really great job from yesterday engaging with them, so we don't anticipate any problems going forward.
Do you have any numbers that you could share with us? How many people are in isolation right now?
Well, I don't have that at the top of my head. I'm sure some Ms. Laura here can tell us.
Okay. Larry, you want to come here?
Hi, good afternoon. We have 247 people in government facilities, and I believe the number is, I'll just double check this, the number is, it's 80 homes that are in isolation, so it's 80 homes. So the one that moved would be 79 homes now.
Okay, and can you speak to how you're going to be doing the random checks or the process of monitoring these individuals while we are under this tropical storm?
Yes, I can. The monitoring team is standing by. They are monitoring people. We are in contact with them, as the Deputy Governor has said. And the mobile team are standing by should they need to mobilize. However, given the weather conditions, we'll have to make sure that their safety is upheld as well. However, we are in constant contact with these people. And should they need anything, they have the email address and the phone numbers as well to contact should they need anything.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, Mr. Tibbetts, just Shanda talked about what to expect, but we are also, it's going to turn into a hurricane at some point later on today. What can we expect once we get to that hurricane stage? Are we going to experience any sort of additional, stronger winds, that kind of thing? Can you tell us about that?
Actually, it's a bit of a trade-off to a certain extent. While the system is getting a bit stronger, as I said, it's almost to a hurricane level right now, and by 1 a.m. it's expected to be a hurricane. That being said, the trade-off is that the forecast track is moving further away from us. So there isn't expected to be that significant a change in any of our weather conditions associated with the storm becoming a hurricane.
Okay. Now, this storm is the earliest 25th Atlantic named storm on record. What does this say about the rest of the hurricane season and the remainder of the predictions that we have for the hurricane season?
I think everybody is just holding on for dear life. I mean, with 25 named storms, that's an extremely active season, and it isn't finished yet. The National Weather Service is looking at its charts, and there has not been a huge amount of cold fronts coming down to kind of cool down the Gulf of Mexico or anything of that sort. So I don't think it's over yet. Let's put it that way. I mean, we've had storms to go all the way to January, so we still got a ways to go.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say January?
Yeah. For the record, only April has never had a storm in it.
Thank you, sir. That's very reassuring.
Donna's about to run off to the supermarket. Okay, just to get to the to the shelter. To the shelter capacity, Deputy Governor, can you speak to what sort of capacity we have? I know there were some challenges with spacing, and now with the COVID-19 protocols, can you address any concerns? And also for animals, if people are coming to the shelter.
Yes, we have actually done a really good job increasing our shelter capacity. And I'll ask Ms. Danny Coleman to give us an update.
Okay.
She has the specifics.
Thank you very much, DG. Yes, as I say, we've got the Red Cross shelter coming online today at 7 p.m, but the other shelters are literally on standby. We don't think we're going to need them in this situation, but again, we just have to make sure that they're ready to go. All our shelter management teams are ready to go as well. We have been doing a lot of work this year, obviously, with the social distancing requirements. So we've got PPE for all our shelters, should we need to activate all of them. So all 15 shelters right now potentially could be activated in the next 12 hours. One of the jobs also we've been doing this year at Hazard Management is ensuring that, again, if by chance COVID becomes an issue, and anyway, we do need to increase our capacity because we have got 8% in Grand Cayman currently. We've done a lot of work to make sure that new shelters can come on board. There's potentially 6 new shelters that could come on board by the end of the year. And again, next year, we're hoping to increase significantly further. So getting potentially from 8% to about 20-25% ideally.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to touch quickly on the regiment. I don't know if the governor or the premier will address this, but at what point would the regiment enter the sequence of events, if at all?
Well, the regiment is clearly there. We've got the 50 part-time reservists who've done basic training. So if we have a need to call on the regiment to assist us, we have that capacity. So it gives us additional resilience and adding a different skill set to what we already have. So I'm sure that can only be a positive moving forward. But obviously at the moment there is no requirement as of now.
What would it take to activate the regiment then? Because that's the whole point of having the regiment for these sorts of events, correct?
It would depend on what specific circumstances required assistance and how we would want to use the regiment, whether it was supporting what the police were doing, whether it was helping out in shelters. It could be deployed to do whatever we require, whatever extra resilience and support we need. So a great additional asset in years to come, but clearly we're still at an early stage.
Okay, great, thank you. My final question relates to flood mitigation. I don't know if Minister Rivers can address that. Are there any specific plans that you can, let the public know about when it comes to dealing with flooding, and what should they do? Who can they call apart from the number that you gave? I know the NRA was doing some work today, so can you assist with that?
Yeah, well, I think definitely with respect to the flooding aspect, the NRA is very much involved with working with the wider team to ensure the suitability, I guess, of the conditions as best as possible before the rains come. I understand that the drains have been cleared and there's been a lot of work that has been done. I would ask Danny if she can come and provide a bit more specifics as to how and what is intended with respect to dealing with any potential flooding that may occur.
Thank you very much, Minister. Hazard Management's been doing a lot of work over the last, I guess, 8 to 10 months on flood mapping. So looking at historical data, as well as also looking at mapping through a GIS network. So our mitigation office has been working very hard on that. We have all the maps up at the office right now. We'll be working overnight just to monitor those. But again, a lot of the mapping's already in place, and we're working very closely with all the stakeholders involved to provide input for that.
Thank you, Danny. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Reshma. Any final information from members of the panel?
I just got an announcement here from the CEO at HSA, just to say that due to the approach of the tropical storm Delta, the HSA has canceled all its regular scheduled outpatient clinics, including the health centers, general practice specialists, physiotherapy, mental health, dental services, and eye clinics for tomorrow. The Cayman Islands Main Pharmacy and Smith Road Pharmacy will remain open until 7 p.m. on Monday this evening, but will be closed tomorrow, 6th of October.
Thank you very much. Premier?
I just want to close by urging everyone to pay careful attention to the official sources of information provided by the government, Radio Cayman, gov.ky, Cayman Prepared, the various government entities. Avoid the sort of unofficial social media as a reliable source of information, because you just don't know what you're going to get. But we're doing everything we can to keep the public informed as and when we become aware of new information. And should we deem it necessary, tomorrow we will have another one of these conferences. I don't think so. I hope not. But if there's anything of real significance that we think warrants this, we will certainly do so. Otherwise, as I say, stay tuned to the various official sources of information all through the night and through tomorrow. Stay safe. And I got a message just now saying, how many times is the Premier going to tell me this year to stay home? Stay home tonight, too.
Thank you very much to the panel. Before we go, just a few announcements, just a reminder of some numbers provided by Minister Rivers earlier. If you have a non-emergency call that you need to make overnight as it relates to the weather, you can call 949-6555. Or if it's an emergency, you can call 911. As the Deputy Governor mentioned earlier as well, that there were, I guess, there was news going around that there were some agencies that would be closing or shutting off water, so on and so forth. The Water Authority has sent a message that they'd like me to share with you. It says that the Water Authority does not have plans to turn off their water distribution network at this time, so customers are encouraged to stock water as part of their normal preparation for any adverse weather. If weather conditions become too severe, the authority may temporarily interrupt water service throughout the night if this action is necessary. So again, as everyone on the panel has said today, unless it's an official source from gov.ky, from caymanprepared.gov.ky, or weather.gov.ky, you should really check your sources and make sure that it comes from one of those entities, including Radio Cayman or the government social media pages, to make sure that the information is accurate that is being shared with you. Of course, we'd like to thank you, the public, for joining us. We'd like to thank our panelists, all the journalists in the room, and other members of the Cayman Islands government for bringing us the very latest on Tropical Storm Delta. Be safe, everyone, and have a good night.